When a person hears the word cult, famous tragedies like Jonestown and Waco often come to mind.
Cult groups are all around us. Anyone can become involved in a cult.
There are currently estimated to be over 4,000 destructive cults operating in the United States. These groups affect nearly 5 million people each year.
My whole world revolved around this organization.
You're belittled and name-called. Parents are separated from their children.
I would have chopped off my right arm. I would have done anything.
Why would a person join such a group?
I remember just screaming, what right does this person have to take my daughter?
You want to know what it is that you believe.
I did not even know what was going on. It was like I was living in a vacuum.
What happens when the blinders are removed and the cult's true colors are revealed?
I'd never felt such intense anger.
I ran as fast as I could. I knew she would be coming after me.
They took my mind. And the scariest thing is that it can happen to anybody.
This is Word Center Ministries. We spent 4 years of our lives here, and they did some pretty horrible things to us. It's like living in a concentration camp. You know, you're belittled and name-called. Parents are separated from their children. Everyone's made to spy on everyone else, and they have no freedom whatsoever. So that's hard.
Tricia and her family never imagined they could end up in a cult. But after 4 years in a small Bible-based church, they now know destructive groups can come in all shapes and sizes.
Hey, Dom, you want to come get your breakfast? My name is Patricia Cartledge, and I'm a former member of a cult called Word Center Ministries. Jimmy and I met at church, and actually he was married before. When we got married, he had 3 sons, and I had a son, and then later we adopted Dominique. When we first moved to Omaha, we were really looking to learn more about what God expected of Christians. I had a friend who was attending the Bible studies at Word Center, and she invited me. When we first attended the Bible studies, they were great. I remember telling someone later, you know, it's great to have a pastor who cares. But there were still some flags like I didn't see. I think that we were being baited and drawn in, you know, little by little, but I didn't know that at the time. The studies didn't become harsh or judgmental until later. The leader became less forgiving and more demanding, and it's like she already had all the earmarks of being a cult leader, and then she slid right into it. You know, it's like, oops, there's the banana peel. I'm off the deep end.
Like Tricia, Brenda's family also joined a devout religious group.
You guys want to go for a walk? Huh?
But her experience took place as a child, and all she ever truly wanted was out.
My name is Brenda Lee, and I am a former Jehovah's Witness. Prior to becoming a witness, I remember playing with my cousins from sunup until sundown. Since I lived in a very isolated farming community, I really depended upon them for my social outlet. And I just remember us having a very Beaver Cleaver-like family. I would just describe it as the perfect childhood. Let's go for a walk. Yay! But when I was 9 years old, 2 really nice Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door and started speaking to my mom, who was a Methodist Sunday school teacher at the time. They offered her a free Bible study. She accepted because she really wanted to expand her knowledge of the Bible. Good to see you. Give me a hug. After studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, my mother told me I should never speak to our relatives again, including the cousins I had played with, because, as she put it, Satan might be using them to keep us from learning the truth. Everything that I knew, everything that I had grown up with completely changed. Instead of going outside and playing, I was forbidden to be outside. You know, I was 9 years old and all of a sudden I was told that we couldn't celebrate holidays anymore. Basically, all the joy in my life was sucked out. I was forbidden to have any friends who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, and because we lived in a rural community, the Kingdom Hall where we went did not have any kids my age. I had nobody to talk to, and I felt so alone in the world and so isolated. It felt like I was in solitary confinement. I really tried to make sense of it. I thought maybe I had done something wrong as a child. I didn't understand what my family was involved with. I never accepted it, and I really just wanted to get out any way I could. I was 18 years old the morning that I decided to leave, and I ran and ran as fast as I could up the road because I knew as soon as my mother realized I was gone, she would be coming after me. There was a part of me that felt really guilty for that, but I had to make a choice to run to safety. I felt like it was my survival at that point. I personally don't think my mother would have ever joined them had she had the fine print up front and had she known that she would be expected to never speak to her daughter someday.
Separating families is a common tactic used by mind control groups. Patricia feels this is happening to her family as her once close daughter pulls away from her.
Roman and I have 6 daughters. My husband and I both come from very strong family backgrounds where family was close-knit and you do a lot of things together. At one time, someone said something about Mom's favorite. And I said, I don't have any favorites. And they all said, oh, yes, you do. I gave each of the 6 girls a piece of paper and said, write down who you think Mom's favorite is. And 6 came back as Ginger. My name is Patricia Morin, and my daughter is a member of the Freedom Foundation in Selma, Alabama. Our family wall of pictures, kind of a tradition, just a collection of all of the girls growing up. And this is actually Ginger. Here she was in the Peace Corps in Bulgaria, always being silly. Must be about 3rd, 4th grade. Ginger, say hi, Grandma. Ginger. Born in 75, so she will be 34 this year. Long journey and well worth remembering. In Ginger's mid-20s, she was living in Colorado, and I was quite struck at how alone she was after having been so surrounded by family and always having someone around. I think that was a difficult time for her. She found this little family group that loved her and met a need in her life. I think the initial drawing point to her was that they did good things, and Ginger was a good things person. Once Ginger got involved with the group, she began to challenge us on our way of life more. The last time she was home at Christmas, she was very disapproving of things that her sisters were doing, which was very uncharacteristic of her. She told me that she could no longer go to a coffee shop or drink coffee, and she couldn't travel anymore because she indicated that she was being influenced by that leadership. These were things that she'd always embraced, and all of a sudden they were wrong. It makes me wonder, has she been programmed? Has she been made to get rid of her independent thinking? I don't know.
Not all cults are religious. Amy, for example, thought she was practicing a type of yoga, but the New Age group she joined eventually took control of her entire life and mind.
You could say a lot of things about me and why I've made the choices that I have. I think that I want love, and I want people to accept me. My mom got remarried when I was in the 2nd grade. My dad hasn't been a part of my life really since my mom left him. When things at home with my stepdad got hard, I would just pour myself into my social life. In high school, I was the popular girl. I was on the homecoming court. I was someone who always had 3 people by my side, 7 boys calling me. I was crazy. I did drugs. I did everything 5 minutes before everybody else did. I was really wild, and I always got good grades, no problem. When I was 20, I moved to Chicago. I didn't have any friends, really, and for the first time in my life, I felt like pretty alone. And then I met someone who later became my boyfriend. He went to this class and he said, "Baby, it's so cool." And I was like, "I'm gonna go see." I had never done yoga before, but I was really interested in trying new things. My name is Amy Shipley, and I was involved in a cult called Dawn Hak, or Dawn Yoga.
Amy left Dawn Yoga only 2 months ago. And like many former cult members, she's been left with serious emotional scars.
It was an instantaneous decision to leave. And I ran away like a chicken with my head cut off. For days, I couldn't sleep. I would shake, I would cry. I did not even know what was going on. It was like I was living in a vacuum. I left the group, but the group didn't leave me.
Amy has come to Wellspring Retreat and Resource Center for a 2-week intensive therapy. It's one of the only centers in the country focused on helping people who were in cults.
I poured all of that passion and everything that I had into this group, and somebody's gonna tell me that it's not real, that they're conning everyone. It felt like someone died. I was spiritually raped. And the pain is so intense that it just comes out in really rocky ways. I need help, and I'm not even convinced that this is gonna help me, but I have to do something.
I remember owners coming out with shotguns, threatening to blow off our heads if we didn't get off their property.
Sometimes I look back at it and think I was so gone. I was cooked.
Although there are many different types of cults, the mind control techniques used by the group's leaders are often eerily similar.
What happens to a person in a cult is that they have less and less control over their lives.
Cults usually isolate people, but they isolate them by busyness, keeping them very involved in cult activities.
The leader gains control through sleep deprivation. The busyness and the activity is stressed all the time in a cult.
The Watchtower organization has over 7 million members worldwide and has been around since the 1800s. For some, it may be surprising to hear this well-known religious organization referred to as a cult. Brenda, however, believes they have all the hallmarks of a mind control group.
There's the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's pretty close to my house. Saturday morning, about 10 a.m., and they're probably getting ready to go out in service, or go witnessing, as they call it, which is basically going door to door, offering free Bible studies to try to recruit people. Going out in service for me was sheer drudgery. I remember dogs turning on me, owners coming out with shotguns, and my feet just freezing by the time I got home. I remember going to meetings until 9:30 at night and getting home at 10, and then I'd have to do my homework until 11. I do remember being exhausted all the time. On this table, I have a whole bunch of stuff from my life, and it helps reaffirm as an adult how things went down. This is my diary that I had as a child. As you can see, it's falling apart. The reason it's falling apart is because I kept this diary hidden in a log in the forest for several years. When I wanted to write down my thoughts, I went into the forest and I journaled. On May 10th, 1974, I simply wrote, "I hate being a Jehovah's Witness. Whip-de-doo." Whip-de-doo is my way of saying, boy, this is really bad. When I look at my diary, it brings back a lot of anxiety. It brings back the suffocating feeling I had. I often describe my childhood as 9 years of having somebody hold a pillow over my face, letting in just enough oxygen that I didn't die. It does bring back a lot of not so great memories.
Tricia also experienced physical and mental exhaustion while in her group, allowing the leader to slowly destroy Tricia's free will.
You had an enormous amount of Bible study homework at Word Center. Sharon had this rule that you had to read a book of the Bible 100 times, read and read again, and mark something else and read again. So it was exhausting. All the extra writing was things that she said that scripture meant. So pretty soon you're not really reading it for yourself. She's just using it as a tool and twisting it to find a way to manipulate you. It's like she took the Bible and put it through a paper shredder and then taped it all back together in miscellaneous pieces.
Every time she asked us to do anything, really, be it manual labor, interrogating somebody, it didn't really matter what it was. By that point, we just simply did what we were asked to do.
The question is always asked, why didn't we just leave? If there were an easy answer to that, there'd be a lot fewer people in cults. It's very similar to domestic violence and the control that one spouse has over the other. You can't just get up and leave.
Patricia's daughter followed a charismatic preacher to Selma, Alabama. Patricia believes her daughter has been manipulated and is no longer thinking for herself.
I have spoken to former Freedom Foundation members who have shared insights onto what the teachings of the group are and what happens in their daily lives. They can't challenge anything. They're kept busy. They are tired. And from all that I have read about groups with controlling behavior, this is a tactic that they use. I've kept track online, looking for clues and searching for her as any parent would search for a child that had been lost or stolen, or in any situation where you've lost your child and you continue to look. She called her dad and said, "Make mother stop." And he basically said, "You know, you don't remember your mother? She's not going to stop. She's a tiger. She's not going to quit looking for you."
Dawn Yoga is a large Korean meditation group with centers popping up all over the country. It promises its members enlightenment, but as Amy learned, it employs the same mind control techniques used by most destructive cults.
I would wake up every day at 6 a.m. I would go door to door, and I would leave all of these brochures. I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. I found the answer. This is it. This is a practice that I want to implement in my life.
While at Wellspring, Amy will meet daily with Dr. Paul Martin, a therapist specializing in cult recovery.
Isolating you from the outside world, so you were in Dawn world.
In Dawn, and we did self-declaration. Like some people would scream, "I am a hero!" But they would give 100% of their energy. And to me, it was the most inspiring thing to watch people throw their conviction and their passion for growth out there. To me, that's so inspiring.
But that passion isn't something that the cult created, is it?
No.
Think about that for a minute.
I always had it.
You always had it. You have passion, so you know that the cult just exploited that passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like the quintessential definition of a cult, you know, with 4 stars after it. I wanted to take over the world and kind of created this spiritual United Nations, another utopian vision. And of course, we all know there's no utopia.
Sometimes I look back at it and think, holy, I was so gone. I was cooked.
Okay, so today we're going to achieve our vision. This is our 6th day of MIT training.
We just had this glassy-eyed smile. I've never been happier, Susanim.
Yay!
Did you?
And you scream at the top of your lungs. We would scream so loudly that I wouldn't be able to talk for the next 3 days.
1, 2, 3!
Now I can see that even though some of the practice was legitimate, it was all just kind of based on this lie. It was all based on operating and living in a trance state. The trainings, the tapping, the screaming, the yelling, Everything that I did every day kept me in an altered state of consciousness. I could not critically think.
There's nothing else for me to do.
I was on this spiritual high while the group's leaders were very carefully dictating my life. And I had no idea.
The saddest thing I think about is that my husband and I may not live to see her again.
I remember saying, I've lost 4 sons because of Word Center, and I will not let them take Dominique.
Once a person has joined a cult, they are often taught to see outsiders as enemies.
Your previous relationships, even your family, you're encouraged to cut off completely.
There's an information monopoly. Communication with people on the outside, it's gone.
And this can be a painful thing.
Patricia always had a close relationship with all 6 of her daughters, which leaves her saddened and surprised now that Ginger has distanced herself from the family.
This is a box of things of Ginger's. There's a lot of memories in the box. Just a collector doll that I have no idea. Wasn't expecting that. Well, it's just a piece of wheat, but these are the kinds of things I think that catch me off guard. Ginger loved going to the farm where I grew up and just to be on the farm with Grandpa and Grandma. Wasn't expecting that. The Ginger today doesn't seem to be anything like the daughter that we raised. She's not coming home, and she's never ever interacted with her sister's children.
In 2005, Ginger called to say she was marrying a fellow member of her group, but wasn't inviting any family to the wedding.
It was a shock. The day that we were told that she was getting married, and she was not extending an invitation to us. And that phone call came out of the blue and knocked us for a loop, I'd say.
It's your hope that as you grow older, you'll see your children married, you'll know them as your family, you'll hold their babies, you'll be the grandparents. So it's heart-wrenching.
It had to be this group that took over control of her thoughts and wishes, like a puppet where they're pulling her strings.
The other girls would try to talk to Ginger, come home, or this doesn't make any sense, try to reason with her, which just simply didn't work. She would never answer a telephone call. It had been 4 years until last summer that she had ever had a conversation on the telephone with me.
Ginger, where are you going today? Aren't you going to miss me?
I feel very sorry, not for myself, but for what my daughter is missing out on. The nieces and nephews and the love of her sisters and the love of her parents and what she and her family are missing by excluding family.
When Amy was a Dawn Yoga member, the more she became indoctrinated, the more she pulled away from her family and friends.
I would call my mom pretty often, and I would just kind of lie to her about when I was getting home or what I was doing. And she started to worry, I know. There were a few times when I wanted to visit my mom and my grandpa, or when I would talk about my family and my authority figure would say, Amy, when has your family ever really helped you? They never sit you down and say, you're not allowed to do this and this, but it's implied. We were told that your number one priority is vision. So that means when I slept, I went to sleep for vision. When I ate, I was eating for vision. When I peed, I was peeing for vision. So that was how I was taught to divide my time. In my pie of life, Dawn had every single slice. I gave up all of my money, my apartment, the way that I dressed. I didn't have any friends. I didn't see my family. I was living my life for Ilchi Lee's vision, 100%.
Amy has been at Wellspring for almost a week. She is far from healed, but she's beginning to understand what happened.
Today is Saturday, November 1st. I am halfway through with my time at Wellspring. It makes sense how I lost touch or lost track with the real me. And hearing that in the therapy here is really hard. And I feel completely terrified to leave here. I feel terrified to move back to Chicago and be by myself. I feel terrified.
Brenda also experienced the pain of being separated from her family. A letter from her mother, a devout Jehovah's Witness, is a constant reminder.
She opens by saying, "We received new information in the Watchtower. I'm sending you the information so you can read it over carefully." And then she says, "I'm going to discontinue my writing to you. If you want my association again, and I hope you do, then come back on Jehovah's side. The decision is up to you, Brenda, and I hope you make the right one." So that was the last time I heard from her on September 4th, 1981. In any group, in my opinion, you should have the right to join and you should have the right to leave anytime you want without life-altering consequence. In the Watchtower organization, as I found out and as millions of people have found out, that's not possible. If you leave, you are an outcast. You know, becoming a mom healed me on so many levels. I got to experience through my son things I was forbidden to know as a child. I got to experience birthday parties for him. In fact, I probably went overboard. When he was little, I remember having 3 birthday parties for him in 1 week. Derek, do you think you could carry this big box for me out to my car? The only regret that I have is that he doesn't know his aunt or his uncle or his grandmother. So it's transcended more than just one generation. It's affected not just me, but him as well. Derek, I'll see you tonight. Bye, have a good day.
While Tricia was in her group, she too was separated from her family. Although she is no longer a member today, all the wounds have yet to heal.
When we were deeply immersed within Word Center, we were not allowed to talk with our son Jamie or our son John because they were not willing to participate. Chris is our oldest son, and Sharon had him stop calling us mom and dad. She had Nathaniel confess to sexual sins, sins that he hadn't committed. He was 18. Sharon said, "He's not allowed in your house ever again. You're not allowed to do anything for him. You're not allowed to provide him with any food. You are no longer his parents."
We were so far into being a part of Word Center, we couldn't think critically enough to realize this is insane, this should not happen, she's out of her mind.
I remember praying and just saying, "God, I love you, but I hate it here," and feeling torn between my relationship with God and my relationship with Word Center. It's like being held hostage. There are no chains on me and there's no handcuffs holding me there, but it isn't like you can just walk away. I remember saying to my husband, "I've lost 4 sons because of Word Center, and I will not let them take Dominique." So I'm going to go to Chicago tomorrow. I feel scared. I hope to live my life for me.
Any child who really believes their parent is going to kill them is carrying a horrible burden.
All they do is taking a drink, they go to sleep. That's what death is, sleep.
If you had been there, do you think you would have drunk the cyanide?
If I had seen really my adopted family of 913 people all dying around me, it would have been a very tough decision not to.
It's very difficult to leave one of these groups because you're told that your life will fall apart.
Typically, people coming out of cults have a tremendous amount of confusion. They're plagued with fears and have panic attacks and have trouble sleeping, for example.
When you leave the group, decision-making is something very new to you. You have to adjust to an outside world. It can be agonizing.
There are many reasons people may leave a destructive cult, but as Tricia discovered, it's rarely easy.
By the time we left, not only was Nathaniel not allowed to speak to us or look at us. Perfect. Chris and Rachel had stopped calling us their parents, and the whole group was very, very vicious towards Jimmy and I. I couldn't handle any more meetings and any more interrogations.
It's kind of weird because a couple nights before we actually left, we were still doing every interrogation, going to everything. But my mom had told me that, you know, she's nuts. I'm not letting her touch you. She's not going to take you like she took my brother Nathaniel.
The first few weeks that we left Word Center were terrible because when you leave, it really is like you left the planet for a little while, and now you're asking me to come back to Earth, and I don't know where that is or what I'm supposed to do there.
Because we got 50 signs.
Nathaniel was still being held there. Chris and Rachel and the kids were still going there. So we put these bright signs up from the main road all the way down to Word Centers, specifically communicating with Nathaniel and Chris, just saying things like, Nathaniel, we love you, we miss you. There was no way that they could drive down that road and go to that cult and not be aware that we cared about them and that we wanted them out. Of course, the people at Word Center were furious.
Patricia's son Nathaniel eventually was kicked out of Word Center for thinking independent thoughts. A sign, perhaps, the leader was losing control over him.
When Nathaniel was kicked out of Word Center, he spent a week completely alone, speaking with nobody. Sharon had him convinced that I was going to kill him, that if I couldn't have him, that I wouldn't let anybody else have him.
After 20 months without speaking, Nathaniel contacted his mother 2 weeks ago.
Any child who really believes their parent is going to kill them is carrying a horrible burden. You know, we were in a train wreck called Word Center, and we survived it, but we'll probably always walk with a bit of a limp. And that's okay, because at least we're walking.
Brenda left the Jehovah's Witnesses over 20 years ago. She now uses her experience to help others.
I teach cult seminars throughout Denver. I think people have a right to know the truth. How many people in this room, before they walked in today, thought, a cult would never get me? Come on, see? You know, cult education, I always say, is the vaccination to cult involvement. And what you don't know can hurt you. It's very gratifying to know that I can take a very negative experience as a child and turn it into a very positive experience as an adult.
For speaking out against the organization, Brenda often receives hate mail from current members.
This one says, you are a disgrace. If you pulled this with any other religious group, you'd probably be dead by now. Just because you couldn't be a dyke and a member of God's people at the same time doesn't mean you should take it out on God. These are emails from so-called Christians. Jehovah's Witnesses are taught to hate the outside world, especially so-called apostates, people who left the organization and who speak critically against the organization. So it's not surprising that I get these emails at all. I wrote my memoir at the age of 41, same age my mother was, coincidentally, when she joined the Watchtower organization. I'm from Golden, Colorado, so I'm a local author, and I'm signing copies of my book here today. I wrote it because I wanted my son to know me. I want him to truly understand my roots, because he did not have that relationship with his grandparents. He'll never know the joy of making cookies with Grandma, being spoiled on a shopping trip by Grandpa, or hearing stories of how Grandma and Grandpa met and fell in love. My son read my book, and afterwards I asked him, I said, Derek, I said, what did you think of my life experiences as a teenager compared to yours? And all he could say was, man, I have a good life.
I'd like to get a copy.
Okay, awesome. I would love to sign it for you.
Yeah,
What's your first name?
Taylor.
Taylor. Unless you've walked in somebody's shoes, it's really hard to empathize with them and understand what they've been through. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Patricia's daughter Ginger is still a member of her group. the ramifications of which are felt all throughout her family.
There's always the remembering and the wishing. You know, she's not there. She's not there for pictures. She's not there for the memories. She's not there, you know, to do the things that she always liked to help out with.
What are you making, Miss Ginger? Sandbox.
I know, like when we say grace, you think of her.
There's always the elephant in the room. You know, it just comes in sometimes big pieces and sometimes bite-sized pieces. I think the times that the situation is most at the forefront of my mind is during family times when everyone is home but Ginger. One of the girls said, it's like this black cloud hangs over us, and it's always more noticeable when you're all together. And I think this sadness comes over us. We're making memories, and she's not a part of them. I feel very cheated. I feel like I've been robbed of something that was rightly mine. The saddest thing I think about is that my husband and I may not live to see her again. But I have hope to imagine a day when this is all behind her. That's what keeps me going.
Leaving the cult was only the beginning of Amy's journey. As she nears the end of her treatment at Wellspring, she realizes the road ahead will be long.
Everyone who's here have been out of their groups for way longer than me. So I'm by far the most raw, still struggling with the group's doctrine. I'm the most post-traumatic. It's certainly not going to be like I come back and I'm cured. It's not like a rehab for cocaine. It's like something completely different. I deserve to live a life that's for me. I deserve to make my own decisions. I deserve to be treated with respect. Yeah, I deserve to call the shots. So this is my last day, last night at Wellsprings. So I'm going to go to Chicago tomorrow. I feel scared. And I hope that people there will treat me well, be understanding, and I hope to live my life for me. I feel like I have a long way to go.
I've talked to a lot of cult survivors, and I think that we kind of go off the deep end.
It's very clear that I still need a lot of help, but at least I'm trying, and at least I'm doing something about it.
Cults give you all kinds of promises of a better life.
People in mind control cults are happy, or at least they're indoctrinated to believe that they're happy. In the real world, nobody's happy all the time.
Hello. I've talked to a lot of cult survivors and people who've come out of really restrictive groups like this, and I think most of our experiences are very similar in that we kind of go off the deep end.
I just remember being really worried when, you know, the Armageddon was supposed to come, you know, and then, I don't know, at some point I just realized it was fear-based.
Yeah, I was having a heart talk with my wife, who's a witness, and she says, with your friends, they turned you into an evil monster. You know, I go, where? What have I been doing?
Yeah. When I was younger, I truly resented my mother for what she had brought me into. But there was a part of me that always wanted my mom, you know, especially in my early 20s when I was getting married and she wasn't at the wedding, or when I had my first child and she wasn't here to see him. Those kinds of things still hurt today, and I think they always will. There was never a moment in my life where I ever considered going back to the organization and being in the good graces of my family. I would have died under a bridge before I ever went back.
I hope that people watching a story about our family would be more attuned if something seems to be going wrong in a relationship. And I would hope that people would ask questions. Just never give up hope. and keep looking until you get an answer. It can happen to anyone's family, and so I hope that people will love their family and hold them close every moment they can. Stay in contact and forgive. The door is always open. It's never closed to her or to her family. I'm practical enough to understand that it won't be easy, that, you know, there has to be a sense of give and forgive on both parts. I can imagine the day and pray that it happens soon.
The cult has taught me a lot. I learned that I am entitled to pursue my own interests in my own life just as much as every other person is. I plan to open a facility here in the Omaha area helping people who leave cults, and I'm working pretty hard at trying to get that done. I don't think the diploma is that important to me because my plans go so far beyond the diploma.
Ready?
Probably the biggest thing, in my opinion, that people don't understand about cults is that they're everywhere. I think every day, people in society are manipulating other people. This is just a greater form of manipulation. I'm not afraid of Word Center anymore or afraid of other cults. I'm very confident that my future is okay.
It's been 4 months since Wellsprings, 5 months since I walked out of the center, and I'm doing everything I know to do to continue with my life in a positive way. On paper, I'm doing really well. I am teaching and have a great apartment. I'm going out with my friends. I'm doing my laundry and baking chicken, doing things that normal people who have not been in cults do. It's very clear that I still need a lot of help, but at least I'm making my own choices. At least I'm trying, and at least I'm doing something about it. Sometimes when I listen to myself talking about my experience, it feels really real and really scary. I've been out of the group for 5 months, so it's still really fresh. And I put so much pressure on myself to succeed and to be the best and go, go, and go. And I need to learn how to be comfortable with who I am, and I need to learn how to be still. I want to feel proud of myself. I want to feel like I'm secure with who I am. The progress that I've made is beginning to understand how long it's going to take for me to come out of this and really put my experience of being in a cult behind me. I need to be really honest, but I hope to achieve that in a year.